Look at this is solar PV with a decline. This is a levelized cost of electricity. So this is not at all the lowest. This doesn't go from the highest to the lowest. It's levelized, so it really is rather average. It declined by 86%. And we have, wind declining by 2/3. The only to increase is nuclear power investment. And I put this in about 5 minutes before I started the presentation, because this was published, I've only seen this today. It's very interesting. It's a battery price development which just came out, and it's the same source as Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And it shows a staggering decline since 2010 of lithium-ion batteries. Keep in mind the 86% for PV from 2009. This is 85% since 2010. This is the installed capacity. Look at wind is now standing at just under 500 gigawatts, solar 400, while since we're talking added capacity since 2000. Added capacity. No, these are not absolute numbers. It's to see the trend, right? Where does it go from since 2000? So we see added 500 gigawatts in wind, 400 in solar, whereas nuclear is basically stagnant. The outcome in added terawatt hours, we took 1997 as a baseline because that was the signature of the Kyoto Protocol. So the question is, what happened since then? What did these various technologies actually accomplish in the sense of added kilowatt hours? And you see that it's a dramatic difference between wind, solar, and even solar has outpaced added nuclear generation. Here we see what happens in the European Union, and this is like for the year 2017, in terms of added, how many gigawatts wind, solar, natural gas, etc. were added or withdrawn from the European grids. So we basically, the message is pretty clear. It's wind and PV and other renewables. I mean, even gas, it's almost 50-50 of the quantity that was added and that was withdrawn from the grid. Quite interesting. Coal, massively in the minus, and nuclear in the minus. And fuel oil is obvious, that is also not very significant in total numbers. We look at the same logic, increase since 2000, wind and solar in terms of installed capacity, with a lot of reactors getting off grid in Europe, and this becomes even more dramatically clear here with the production figures that are much lower than in the Kyoto year 1997. This is the situation in India, which might be less known in general, but it's also quite impressive. I mean, look at the dynamic that is in solar in India. Actually, it was just last week it was published a paper that shows that the solar in India can now compete with existing coal. New solar can compete with existing coal in India. That's quite amazing. So also here we see, wind alone generates more power than nuclear, and especially we see it's flat. It's been flat in India for a couple of years, while the increase is staggering in solar and wind. And that brings me to some conclusions. We've seen a small increase of nuclear power, which by 1% approximately, essentially due to China. If you take China out, it's actually decreasing. Nuclear power capacity additions are absolutely insignificant in global terms. You have to imagine, the net increase in 2017 was 1 gigawatt. So if we look at the added minus the withdrawn capacity. So net added capacity, 1 gigawatt. So put that into context with a total market, world market for electricity generating capacity of about 257 gigawatts, of which 157 gigawatts are renewable. I think those figures speak for themselves. And it shows that in the new build market, nuclear power has become entirely irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you think about it, that's another story. You can find that a pity, or you can find that great. But it's a fact. And it's part of these facts that people should start taking into account when discussing about this issue. Nuclear power and new build is strictly irrelevant in the market. New build is increasingly existing nuclear is more expensive than solar and wind, much more expensive than efficiency. If this is not about energy policy in general, but we should never forget efficiency as, this is generally the cheapest we can do, and the most efficient, and the most, the fastest, especially, what you can do. So if you do something else, if you spend today a Taiwan dollar, a euro, or a US dollar into nuclear new build, you're actually contributing to killing the climate. It should be made very clear, because the key objective is to identify options to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. If you do that, and you look at the various options, nuclear power is about the worst thing you can do, where you can spend your money. So existing nuclear is increasingly coming into trouble economically, as we've seen in the United States, which is similar in other countries. But it's also a very powerful innovation barrier. If you have these things standing around, it is, avoiding, it's a barrier for, doing new strategies, for innovating, not only in technology, but also in organization in other areas. I would sum it up by saying nuclear power is, if it was a living organism, it would be threatened by extinction, or it's actually already on its way of extinction, because the renewal rate of this technology is too small for survival. So, in fact, Taiwan's phase-out policy as it stood is simply an acceleration of an existing trend globally of what you can call an organic phase-out of this technology that happens everywhere. Thank you very much for your attention.